Hello and welcome to the Fit and Free podcast. This is a podcast for women who want it all, to feel strong and confident in their bodies, as well as enjoying a sneaky mug on a Friday night. I'm an exercise physiologist and sports nutritionist, here to teach you how to achieve your body goals without food and your body controlling your life. So let's jump in. Weight loss is hard, but keeping it off long term is even harder. The statistics in the research is crazy in terms of the percentage of people who just rebound after they lose the weight. But I know you're a listener of this podcast, so I know we're not playing victim to those circumstances, and we are going to defy the odds. So in this episode, I'm going to be diving deep into 8 research-backed habits shared by those who maintain weight loss long term. I had a really good think about this, and I had a really good think about all my clients who have been successful long term. I even audited my life in terms of the things that I am doing on a consistent basis that has been able to help me lose weight and actually keep it off. So no gimmicks, just practical, proven strategies to help you beat the odds. So let's jump into the episode. Hello, you guys, an official welcome and welcome back if you are a seasoned listener. And hello, if you are new here, I am super excited to dive into today's episode, speaking about all things maintaining fat loss. Because it's one thing to lose fat, but it's another thing to keep it off. And for years, I was stuck in a pretty big yo-yo dieting cycle. I would lose weight, I would put it back on, I would just lose weight through challenges. One time I joined a CrossFit challenge and I had to eat paleo for 8 weeks. Then I used to do group fitness and I was constantly doing the 8-week challenges there. I was vegan for 2 years and I was just always in this constant next best thing in order to lose weight, because at the end of the day, if I'm truly honest with myself, I didn't actually know how to do it properly. And I was just relying on shiny object syndrome, and I was relying on motivation, and I was relying on these ways of I'm going to lock in to essentially build consistency. But because at the end of the day, I didn't actually understand nutrition. I didn't understand a calorie deficit. I didn't understand maintenance. I didn't understand macros. I didn't understand what I actually needed to do. Essentially, I was never successful. So that's why I wanted to really talk about this topic, because when you actually dive into the research, it's actually kind of crazy to how many people regain the weight after they lose it. So I really hope by bringing you this episode today, you can kind of audit your life into terms of how you're approaching fat loss and how you're approaching muscle gain and how you're approaching nutrition in general. So maybe you can actually, see where you potentially are not focusing on and not focusing on the right things, so that you can actually be successful with fat loss and keeping it off long term. Now, just a bit of a disclaimer, this episode, I'm going to be raw, I'm going to be direct, and I'm going to potentially call you out. And if I do so, please know that I'm doing it with absolute love. Because at the end of the day, a lot of the time we get stuck in patterns, we get stuck in behaviors that we don't even see ourselves doing it. And then that's why we get stuck in these loops. If you're someone who's saying, why do I keep doing this? I'm never going to be successful. I'm never going to lose weight. My metabolism is broken. I'm just different. Then essentially what's happening to you right now is you're stuck in some sort of pattern and self-sabotaging loop, and you've created habits that are not supportive of your overall goal. And sometimes we don't see that we're even doing that. And so by, helping you call out some of the things that you potentially could be doing, then you get to see something in a different way. And then essentially you get your power back. Because if you're stuck in a pattern, you don't know you're doing it, then you're just going to keep doing it. That's why I love coaching so much. And that's why I love my weekly coaching call with the ladies inside the Fit and Free Academy. And actually right now we're running a mini challenge. We're running a mini all or nothing challenge to help the ladies see where they are self-sabotaging so they can ultimately break free of the sabotage and be successful with their goals. But, if you don't know that you're doing it, then how are you ever going to change? So please know that I'm if you get a little bit triggered throughout this episode, I really hope that you can potentially see it as a good thing, because then you can be oh crap, this is where I have to look at. This is my sign of growth. This is where I have to, put my time and attention so that I can actually be successful. Okay. Just needed to say that. All right, let's dive in. So first of all, I just wanted to start off with a few common mistakes that I see people make when they're transitioning from a fat loss phase to a maintenance phase. So number one, just overall, the first mistake that people are making when it comes to fat loss and then trying to maintain that fat loss is the way that they're actually losing fat. And they don't actually have a proper strategy. They're just following either a diet, they're being good, they're eating clean, they're following a challenge without actually understanding how much and what to eat in alignment with their goals. And this is like what I said at the beginning. Like I, for a long time, didn't understand what macros were, what a calorie deficit is, what maintenance calories was. Like it was like, what the hell? What is all of these things? And it makes sense, right? Because at the end of the day, nutrition it's like another language that you have to learn. But once you learn it, you've got it for life. And this is what I tell all my clients. It's hard at the beginning. Absolutely. You've got to learn. You've got to understand. You've got to figure out what food is, essentially. There is a learning process. And at the end of the day, a lot of people are not willing to put in the work that is required to actually understand nutrition because it's easier to follow a diet. It's easier just to be good. It's easier just to eat clean without actually understanding how to fuel your body properly. Because it's overwhelming. And then if you have a perfectionist pattern, it's like, if you're not getting it right, you're just consistently like shaming yourself and telling and judging yourself for doing it wrong. But matter of fact is that you're just learning. You're learning a skill, right? And a lot of people are not willing to put in the effort to actually master that. Because if you said like, okay, you got to learn, what carbs are, fats are, protein is, and, nail your macros and understand that. Or if you're like, oh, I'm going to start this challenge and everyone's like got this high motivation and I'm just going to be good, like what's really going to be easier? Obviously the challenge. But then the problem is because you actually haven't learned why you're doing what you're doing and you've just followed something and just been restrictive, then of course, as soon as that restriction goes away, the weight is just going to come back on, right? Because you're going to go back into your old ways of eating, your old habits, your old relationship with food and how you're living your life before the restriction. So the weight just comes back on. Because if you truly want to be successful, you need to understand how to fuel your body properly. And that's why inside the Fit and Free Academy, I'm actually teaching my clients. At the beginning, it's overwhelming and it is difficult because it's like, if you're coming from ground zero and you don't even know what a calorie is and you don't know what macros are, it can be really overwhelming because it's like, oh my God. And then you're like, oh my God, I want to get this right. And I've got this goal, which I see that. But at the same time, it's like, as a coach, like I don't want to be like, I'm the type of person that actually wants to teach you how to do it and what you're doing instead of just giving you this strict plan, because that's not supportive for you. Because as soon as I take away that strict plan, then you're like lost and you don't know what to do. So that's why it's really, really important to be successful. Like you need to actually learn and understand and know why you're doing what you're doing so that you can replicate it, essentially. Now, moving into mistake number 2 is people are just eating low calories instead of focusing on the quality of your nutrition. So a lot of reasons why people regain the weight is because I see all the time is like people just drop their calories really low, do cardio, and they lose weight. However, because they're not focusing on the quality of their nutrition, they're not focusing on strength training, progressive overload, and following a program, what happens is people lose weight, but they lose muscle as well. So the composition of their body doesn't necessarily look like that much better. Like, well, yes, you look smaller. Yes, you look good yes, you feel better in your clothes. But because you've lost the muscle, you don't have that fit, toned, lean look. You get stuck in like the skinny fat cycle. So when it comes to fat loss and maintaining it, it's, we have to think about nutrition as a fuel to our car, right? Like it's our health, it's our fuel, it's our micronutrients, it's our vitamins, it's our minerals, it's our fiber, like supporting our gut health, right? And this is where, if we're not also focusing on balancing the two between, creating a calorie deficit, but then also focusing on the quality of our nutrition, like other areas of our life are going to suffer. Our energy is going to suffer. Our health is going to suffer. We'll probably get imbalance in hormones, right? Our gut health is going to suffer. Our digestion is going to suffer. So if we get into this place where we just lose weight and, but at the same time, we're just feeling like shit because of the quality of the nutrition has gone down the window, or if, we lose weight, but we're still not happy with what we look like, then we get negative, and then we're like, we fall into these patterns of like, what's the point? What's the point of doing this? I don't even look good. Thinking about food all the time. I'm stressed and all of the things, just in such a negative place. Then it's like, well, what's the point? Then we sabotage, we binge eat, we avoid working out, we just say F it and just screw it and just go off the rails, right? And this is where a lot of people then will just put the weight back on. And that's because the way that you've lost weight, again, it kind of goes hand in hand with the first one, but the way that you lost weight wasn't supportive of your body, and it wasn't supportive of your health, and it wasn't supportive of your actual long-term goal. It was just coming from, dropping calories because everyone's like, calorie deficit, cardio, lose weight. But you have to remember, you guys, there's a difference between weight loss and fat loss. And it's really important that you guys get that and understand that, especially if you have a toning goal. Then lastly, the last mistake that I see people make is just completely cutting out social events. Avoid going out for dinner. They're like, nope, I'm on this diet. I'm on this challenge. I'm being good. I'm cutting out alcohol, like just avoiding any sort of thing that's going on. But essentially, if you're doing this, like, you probably will be successful long term. But then I always say this to my clients. It's like, do you want to give up your social life for the rest of your life? Do you want to continue to, be all in or all out, like when you go on a holiday? Do you want to be constantly in this diet and mindset? A lot of the time they say no. Okay, cool. Well, then what we need to do is, if you want to go out and enjoy your social life, you need to learn how to navigate your social life whilst being in the specific phase you're in, whether in a deficit or a maintenance. Because at the end of the day, I did this. I cut out my social life and I was successful with weight loss. But then as soon as I finished working up with this coach who told me I was not allowed to eat out, yeah, I lost weight, right? And I was, I lost weight because I was so restrictive, no dessert, no eating out, right? But then what happened? I was terrified of eating out. I would go out after this challenge end, I would go out and I would be terrified of undoing my progress because this coach told me that I wasn't allowed to do it. So then in my head, I was like, oh, I lost this weight because I stopped eating out. So now when I go out, I'm like, fuck, I'm undoing my progress because I'm eating out this food. So there was a lot of fear in that for me. But what I know to be true is that one meal is not going to undo your progress. It's how you navigate that meal and what you do after that meal that does. So if you do not know how to enjoy your social life, even in a calorie deficit, right? If you don't know how to not hit the effort button any single time you go over your calories, then you're going to be stuck in the losing weight and then putting back on. Like, I reflect back now on my calorie deficit that I did at the start of the year. I started it like January, I finished it up in April, and I lost, about 7 and a bit kilos. And over that time, like, I went to Austria. I had my birthday. I had my fiance's birthday. I traveled from the Netherlands to Bali to Australia. Like, I did a lot in that time and I was still successful. And do you know how many times I ate out? A lot of times. And did I completely restrict myself? No, I didn't. Because at the end of the day, you can live this life. You just have to be more mindful and you just have to make choices in alignment with your goals. Because if you just cut everything out, you don't actually understand how to navigate these times, then it's always just going to be that all in or all out approach to nutrition, which then causes you to lose weight and put it back on. Very important. So they are the common mistakes that I'm seeing people make. So now I'm going to dive in to 8 habits that are actually supported by the research that will help you let go of this all or nothing approach to nutrition and exercise and actually start focusing on daily habits. Because when you start focusing on your daily habits instead of being all in or all out, these habits are going to compound, they're going to snowball, and all of a sudden you'll be like, oh my God, I'm seeing results by just living my life and how I'm living that. Because that's how you're going to start doing things in a sustainable way, you guys. It's you have to start living your life as you are, but making better choices. And that's what it's going to come down to. and making not even better choices, making educated choices. Because, nutrition is like, you can be eating healthy, you can be doing all of the things and not seeing results. And literally, it can just come down to slightly changing your portion sizes of your meal. Literally, a little bit less carb, a little bit more protein, a little bit less fat, a little bit more veg. Eating the same food, but just switching around your portion sizes, and that's going to make a difference. That's literally how you're going to lose weight. Anyway, we're going to dive into that in a minute. So let's dive into these habits. So number one, and I cannot emphasize this enough. And if you're currently not doing this, please start doing this. Number one, planning your meals every single week. My clients are probably going to get sick of me saying this, but it is a non-negotiable inside the Fit and Free Academy. You have to plan your meals. You need to understand what you're eating, when you're eating it, every single day. Because piss poor planning equals piss poor results. I still to this day sit down every week and plan out exactly what I'm eating. And I still to this day meal prep. I have been meal prepping literally for the last 10 years. Since I started university, now being in my 30s, I meal prep. Because it's like, I love to cook, right? I really do. I love being in the kitchen. I love creating recipes. I love delicious food, but I do not like doing it every day. I do not have the time. I don't have the energy. I don't have the mental capacity to even think about that. So like for the last decade, I have been meal prepping my lunches. On Monday, when I make one lunch, I make 4 lunches, done. And you guys, if you're like, oh my God, but meal prepping takes so much time. Yeah, because you're learning. And you have to go through that uncomfortable phase of learning. I now meal prep in 45 minutes for, a week of meals, right? And even less sometimes. I can even do it in 30 minutes now. Like I can whip up a spag bowl so fast, but that's because I've been doing it for 10 years. And that's what you guys have to realize is like, you guys have got to put in the time. You have to show up for yourself again and again and again and again and again, and then again to see these kind of results. Okay. So meal planning, number one, literally planning out. So how I plan out my meals is my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then for me at the moment in my nutritional phase, I'm having 2 snacks and I'm having a dessert. So I literally write that down. I have a meal planning sheet that I fill in every single week and plan out. And the way that I do it is I break it down in terms of what's my protein sources, what's my carb sources, what's my fat sources, what are my snacks, what's my dessert. And that's kind of how I set up my grocery list. So then I know all the proteins I need to buy. I know the carb sources I need to buy. I know the fat sources I need to buy. And then I know my veg fiber and I know my snacks that I need to buy. And literally breaking it down in that way, then I know exactly what groceries I need to get. I'm sorted for the week. I'm organized. I'm prepared. I don't have to think about it. And I'm sweet. Literally like on autopilot driving the car. Because think about it. If you're not prepped and organized and you don't have any food in the fridge, you don't know what you're going to eat, then of course, how much easier is it to head through the drive-thru, to order takeaway, right? Piss poor planning equals piss poor results. I'm going to say it again. So that is number one. You guys start planning your meals. Number 2 is just eating at home more frequently. So there's a correlation between people who have lost weight and keep it off versus people who lose weight and put it back on is the amount of times that they're just cooking at home. Now, I'm not saying that you have to cook at home every single meal, that you can't eat out. That's not true because, I've lived in Bali. I ate out every day and I didn't gain weight. There's absolutely ways of doing it. Because at the end of the day, the more that you're in control of the nutrition, of your own nutrition, you know what you're putting into your body, you know how you're fueling it. So therefore, when you're in that level of control, then your results are going to be, more calculated. And again, I'm not saying that you can't eat out. That's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is that the research just shows that if you are eating at home more frequently, then there's a much larger chance of you being able to maintain that weight loss. Now, moving into habit number 3 is people with the long-term fat loss often have a consistent routine. The results were created from a lifestyle change and doing the same things over and over again. When I look at all of my successful clients, they've built these really strong non-negotiable habits that they're doing every single week. So when I talk about a consistent routine, it's you're just doing the same thing more or less day in and day out. Going to the gym every day, going to the gym at the same time. You're doing your grocery shop at the same time. You're doing your meal planning on the same time. You're going to bed at the same time. You're drinking the same amount of water every day, right? Having somewhat of a consistent routine then allows you not to think about what you have to do. You can just do it. Because a lot of time people get overwhelmed and they get into procrastination to being like, oh my God, it's just too hard. It's too hard to do this. Instead of just relying on their consistency in their routine. Think about it. Like, do you have to think about brushing your teeth? Do you have to think about having a morning coffee? No, because it's a part of a consistent routine. Imagine if your meal planning was a part of it, your meal prepping was a part of it, going to the gym, going for a walk, going to the bed at the same time every day. Because when you do that is when you're going to be successful. We've been watching Game of Thrones and it's the first time that I've ever watched it. And I found the other night we watched an episode and it finished at 10:30, the episode. And then for me, because I'm so rigid in terms of my sleep schedule, I'm in bed at the same time every single night. Like, I'm not going into bed later than 9:30. Like, I'm already in bed by 9:30. Sorry, 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock. I do not get into bed later than 9 o'clock normally. But then this episode finished at 10:30. And then I was like, oh my God, this is diabolical. But so then I got into bed and then I didn't get to sleep until 11:30. And then I woke up the next day just in my normal routine at like 6 o'clock, got out of bed and I was so tired. And then throughout the day, I was just so freaking tired. I was so tired. And because I was tired, my energy levels were shit. I was hungry and I was like thinking about food more and I was thinking about, and then like I even wanted, there was a little bit of like emotional eating going on. Like I felt like I wanted to emotionally eat because I was just feeling like shit. And then I got really thinking about like, you know, so many people do not realize the effect of their sleep that has on how they're feeling with their food. And then they think it's like that they have to, you know, overhaul their life and they have to, you know, take all these supplements and they have to figure out what's wrong with them. A lot of the time, you just need to go to bed earlier, just need to create a consistent routine with your sleep. Yeah, so the reason why I say that is because like I felt the difference between what a consistent routine felt like and not a consistent routine felt like. Then the next, like 2 nights later, the house was like, oh, we're going to put on an episode. And I was like, nope, it's too late. It's too late to start an episode now. If I start this episode now, then I'm not getting into bed until 9:30 and that is past my bedtime. So hard no. So then instead I got into bed, had my magnesium hot chocolate and started reading my book and it all was good. So sometimes it's also important that we need to be able to set healthy boundaries in and around our own routine, not make ourselves wrong, but know we're making decisions based off our values and what truly aligns with us. So with all that being said, it's so, so important, you guys, instead of looking at restriction, looking at the next best thing, instead audit your routine. Is it consistent? Are you doing the non-negotiables every single week? Are you getting enough sleep? Are you planning your meals? Are you hitting your macros? Are you hitting the nutrition targets? Are you managing your stress? Are you drinking enough water? Because those are the things that is going to help you actually achieve your goal. Now, the next habit. The next habit is just in general, people who have maintained their weight loss are just more active overall. And when I say more active overall, I'm not necessarily talking about going to the gym and doing planned exercise. I'm more talking about just overall daily movement, your steps, your movement, how much you're going about your day. Because at the end of the day, like your actual exercise routine really, like it's not really going to help you lose weight and lose fat. And it's really not a great tool for short-term weight loss. And the reason being is because, you know, the amount of calories burnt from your exercise routine overall is only about 5%. The bigger needle mover is actually how many steps you're doing in your daily movement. That's going to play a much bigger role in terms of how much weight you lose. And I'm not saying, because at the end of the day, like, your exercise routine should never be about creating a calorie deficit or helping you lose weight or fat. What your exercise routine is there for is to help shape your body, maintain your muscle, but also all of the amazing health benefits, of course, that you get from exercise. Like, that's really why. The improvements on your mental health, your physical body, like your cardiovascular system, your respiratory system, everything, right? Joints, tendons, longevity. We could go on about the benefits of exercise. That's why I got into being an exercise physiologist in the first place. But what we just have to draw attention to is people who are successful with weight loss long term is they're just generally more active. And we've known this fact for a while, but it has just come back into the research in terms of doing 10,000 steps a day can really help prolong your life. And in terms of, I'm talking about, prevention of chronic lifestyle disease here, right? Because at the end of the day, what is diabetes? What is cancer? What is, a stroke? What is a heart attack? It's lifestyle disease. And, living an unhealthy lifestyle is causing these factors. And of course, not everything, there's also going to be genetics and there's also going to be other things, but there's a lot of lifestyle disease that absolutely can be prevented if we start looking after our health right now. And that's the biggest thing with the movement. And like, this is just looking at the facts here now, right? Like, there's crazy stats out there showing that keeping exercise up during and post weight loss massively improves the odds of weight loss maintenance. So get your butt up and get active. And the way that I look at it as well, it's like I look at these stats and I think about it. And, this does, it does hit a little bit close to home for me because I don't talk about this very much, but my dad passed away from bowel cancer when I was just 16 years old. And I look at his lifestyle and it was just so unhealthy. The amount of stress, the food he ate, the lack of physical activity. It's like, think about that. And I could have gone two ways. I could have followed in his footsteps, but I'm kind of really grateful for that experience because it's really just lit a fire under my ass into being like, I went the other way. I went super healthy, super active, and just really focusing on living a really healthy lifestyle because I see the consequence of not. And this is why I'm such a big advocate for it as well. Not from even a weight loss point of view. Like, for me, it's so much deeper than that. It's how you're feeling every day. It's your health. It's your energy. And a lot of the time people are like, oh, how are you so motivated? And how do you, show up? All of the time. I'm like, because it's deeper. I'm doing this for my health. I'm doing this for how I feel. Because if I'm not getting a morning walk in, if I'm not going out and doing movement, right? I feel like shit. I'm angry. I'm irritable. I'm like a bitch and you do not want to be around me, right? Because I know, if I'm not looking after my health and how I feel, then I just feel depressed and low energy and lethargic and just low all round vibe. So the reason I say that is because it's the daily movement piece. It's just so much more than weight loss. And that's what I'm really trying to, be an advocate of there. It's about, this is your health. This is, preventing you in 20 years of getting a diagnosis of, diabetes or whatever that is. Potentially, I don't want to, manifest that into anyone's life, but I'm just being real, being a realist in this situation. It's what we're doing for our health now is literally setting us up for the future. And it's so much easier to make change now than it is after besetting in your ways for 20 years. Another example, love my mum so much and I'm trying to get her to strength train. She won't do it. It's I reckon 20 years ago, if she already built the habit, I reckon she'd be sweet. But because she's waited so long, then it's so much harder to start. And, as you get older, the excuses come in. I'm all of this, I don't have time, all of the things. And yeah, it's again, we can play victim to our circumstance, or we can just step up and do what we need to in order to get what we want. So, yep, that was a bit of a rant on that one. So just to summarize that, it's just people who maintain their weight loss are looking at it through a different lens. It's not about weight. It then gets switched to how they feel, and being more active makes them feel better, and just being active overall supports that long-term fat loss. Now moving into the next habits. I've got 4 more to go. 4 more. We're halfway. All right. Now, number 4 is planning for events in advance. So this is something that I see, a lot of people actually make the mistake of this is they've got an event. So then they're like, oh, I'm going to be good. I'm going to save my calories. But then when they save their calories and they go to the event, then they're just ravenous. They're so hungry. And then they also, don't normally allow themselves to eat this kind of food. So they just turn into a crazy person at the event. They overeat, they feel guilty, and then they just like beat themselves up for it and being like, oh my God, why do I do this? Right? This is because you're in an all or nothing pattern. You've got a restrictive mindset and you've got a scarcity comes out when you go to these events. It is the worst thing that you can do in this situation. Instead, we don't need to save calories. We need to eat normally. We need to keep our protein nice and high. Then we need to go into the event knowing that moment is just going to be a moment where you're probably not going to stick to the calorie deficit, right? And that's okay. One meal going over the calorie deficit is not going to ruin your calorie deficit. Probably going to help you stick to your calorie deficit because you're able to fill up your cup. You're able to enjoy yourself. You're allowed to enjoy the food. And you'll be able to be present, right? But at the same time, it's like when you're going into these events, it's just making sure that you're being mindful, that you're listening to your hunger and fullness cues. Like you're not eating because of insert your thing. You're not eating because other people are eating. You're not eating because you're never allowed to have it. You're eating because it just tastes good, right? If we fall into any sort of justification of why we're eating it, even though we're full, of course, then that's something that you need to look at. Because if you can actually go into these situations, you plan it, you know that it's going to be there, you know that it's coming up, and then you go in with it mindfully, you understand that, okay, cool, this moment is just not going to be exactly to my calorie deficit, but that doesn't mean I'm going to go crazy. I'm not going to justify why I can eat anything. I'm just going to listen to my hunger and fullness cues. I'm going to ask myself what I feel like. I'm going to be present. I'm going to enjoy it. Then I'm going to move on. Then that's how you're going to be successful, right? When I say planning for in advance, like don't want to take this in so far that it becomes disordered. Absolutely not. But it's just level of mindfulness and just planning ahead. So just making sure that you're planned for the rest of the weekend. You know what you're having for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The following day, you're not blowing out. You're just following your nutrition plan and just allowing yourself to have that one meal. And that's fun. You're sticking to your plan 100% during the week, right? Then you've got one meal out. That one meal out, you go over your calories by an extra, 300, right? Instead of like 400 calorie meal, it turns into a 700 calorie meal. Like that in itself is not going to derail progress. And then it's just making smart choices. So like, if you're in a fat loss phase, then it's probably not a great idea to like have 6 margaritas. In a fat loss phase, have 1. So it's just about finding that balance of like still being able to enjoy yourself without overdoing it. Now, the next habit that people are doing is they have external support and accountability from professionals. Now, this is not a shameless plug, but the research speaks for itself, right? And there could be a multitude of reasons of why this is a successful habit, but I truly believe it's coming down to the level of support that you have, the level of accountability, the structure, and the education. Because if you have a level of accountability, like you have to answer to someone, you've committed to something, so then you have to show up, then you have the support from someone. So if shit is going wrong, shit is hitting the fan, things are not going as you planned, and then you have somewhere to go to ask, to get support, to being like, what do I do in this situation? Or, oh my God, I feel like throwing in the towel, help me through this, right? Then you're less likely to give up, right? Then if you have structure, you know exactly what you need to do, what you need to eat. So you don't have to think about it. It's not overwhelming. So you know exactly what you need to do. You know what you need to do in the gym. You know what your nutrition needs to look like. You don't have to think about it. You just have to execute. And then if you actually understand the why behind what you're eating, like if you're understanding your nutritional phase and your calories and the macros and all the things, then of course it's going to be a hell of a lot easier to stick to something because you can ask questions. You know what you have to do. Then you can get help if things aren't going to plan, of course, versus you're just left on your own, overthinking everything, questioning everything, being like, oh my God, am I doing the right thing? Am I eating too much? Is this right? Is this wrong? Am I seeing results? And then the scale goes up. Then you get triggered. Oh my God, things are not working. I have to change everything. I have to restrict, or effort. What's the point? I'm not doing this, and la, la, la. All of the stories that come with it, right? Who do you think is going to be a little bit more successful through that? And this is honestly why I have been investing in myself from day one. Ever since I, started my journeys and all these things, like I've had coaches in every aspect, nutrition, exercise. I've had coaches in business and also like exercise physiology. So many coaches, and I love it, and I would never stop it because it's just it changes your life. Anyway, next one. The next habit that people have, got two more for you, is self-monitoring. And I have been on both sides of this equation of where I, was in a really bad place with self-monitoring, like my calorie counting and my weighing myself and all of the things there. I just had a really unhealthy relationship with it. And for a long time, I was like, fuck the scale, fuck this, fuck calorie counting, all of the things. Because I essentially back then used to get triggered by all of those things. Now I have absolutely changed my perspective on all of it, because like the reason why I had such an unhealthy relationship with all of it was because I had an unhealthy relationship with myself. It wasn't about the scale. It wasn't about the calorie counting. It was about what I was making those things mean about myself. Like if the scale went up, I was a failure. I was fat. I was gaining weight. I was doing everything wrong. And I would get triggered by that because I had so much worth and value tied to the size of my body. Then I wasn't actually able to implement healthy levels of self-monitoring because everything just triggered me so much. It wasn't until I realized is that, I myself was the problem. Like I had to build my self-worth. I had to detach my value. I had to learn how to handle my emotions. I had to not be triggered by the number on the scale and stop making it mean something negative, but instead using it as power and knowledge. Because when you can really start looking at self-monitoring as not like as self-monitoring as a really helpful tool, it can really actually show you like how much food you can actually eat without gaining weight. Like for a long time, I was so fearful of gaining weight. Then when I actually figured out my maintenance and did it properly and actually, desensitized myself to the number on the scale instead of triggering and actually using it and to build evidence, like, holy shit, like I can eat 2,400 calories and not gain weight. This is amazing. And being able to really utilize the self-monitoring skills as evidence of, oh my God, like this is actually a good thing. Because I get to build evidence that food is not the enemy and food doesn't make you fat. It actually fuels you and actually helps you build muscle and it helps you, feel your absolute best. If I didn't go through that process of being okay with that, then I still would have been like, in this gray area of just being so emotional with everything. So I think it's important for everyone to get to a place of, healthy levels of being able to self-monitor. Because when you can be there, it's like you get to utilize the data as facts, right? Instead of relying on our emotion, like instead of making emotional decisions with your fat loss and with your, with nutrition and exercise, we get to rely on concrete data that is not emotional, that is actual factual. And when we can do that, then we can actually make really solid decisions. If we keep getting emotional and reactive to the data, then how are we ever going to know? We're just going to be in this gray zone of being like, oh my God, I'm eating too much. I'm like, well, how do you know you're eating too much? You just think that you're eating too much because you feel bloated. How about we actually get the facts and the data and how our body is actually responding? Because then we actually know if we are eating too much. And if we are eating too much, we then just have to make a slight change to our nutrition. It doesn't have to be this all or nothing thing. It just be like, okay, cool, you just are eating a little bit too much. Let's just decrease the amount that you're eating and you're fine. So that's something that is definitely a trend with people who maintain weight loss and fat loss is they are not reactive to the number on the scale. They're not reactive to their nutrition. And of course, that just comes down to a lot of mindset work. It took me a long time to get here. Trust me, I don't say that. But it's important that we build this level of emotional intelligence and self-awareness, especially around the scale and our emotions with, food and weight loss and all of the things. Because if you want to be successful, there needs to be ownership. There needs to be ownership of this, and there needs to be a level of responsibility. And if we just keep falling into these reactivity patterns of just, getting triggered and then over and sabotaging, then of course it's going to be next to impossible, right, to be successful long term with it. So being able to self-monitor, and what that means is like you don't have to do it obsessively. Like for me, for example, like when I went from fat loss to maintenance, like through the maintenance phase for 3 weeks, I weighed myself 4 times a week just so I knew that my transition from the fat loss to the maintenance hit maintenance. And I just needed to collect that data of how much food my body needed and how my body was responding to that food. I got 3 weeks of that. And then I'm like, sweet, I know what maintenance now looks like. I now can stop weighing myself. I haven't weighed myself for a while now. And so therefore now I've just been sitting at maintenance for the last couple of months and just like cruising, but I needed to have that level of self-monitoring for me to be able to transition really smoothly, because then I actually know, I actually have the facts, not the emotions. So that's why it's important to have that level. So you don't have to go crazy with it. You don't have to do it every single day. Like I said, it was like a 3-week transition. I also just monitored how much food I was eating just so I had a good idea what a deficit looks like, what maintenance looks like. Amazing. Then when I go back into a deficit phase, which I'm going to be doing very soon, I think I'm super excited for, then there's going to be a level of self-monitoring again. I'm going to be utilizing the scale to making sure that I am in a calorie deficit as I adjust my food to making sure that's working, so then I can watch those trends. And then because at the end of the day, like if it's not working, then we get to take responsibility and make changes, which is really freaking cool. Because if you don't have that level of self-monitoring, you don't really know. Now, I'm not saying that we need to track everything, we need to, do every bite, but there just needs to be, essentially ownership of what you're putting into your body, how much and what you're eating. Do not make yourself wrong. Do not judge yourself for it. And just understanding how much you're actually eating and doing it from a place of like self-respect, because at the end of the day, nourishing your body with good food in the right portion sizes for you is respecting your body. So it's important that we do have a level of like, we understand that we're giving your body the right nutrients. And the way to do that essentially is just understanding how much you're doing. And I'm not saying you have to do it forever, but there just has to be a phase. Like if you've never done it or if you're switching through phases, it's just really good to check back in with your portion sizes. Like I go through phases of weighing stuff on the scale and not weighing stuff because I just need to check back in. It's just like, am I eating enough? Am I doing the right thing? Am I eating too much? Like, and it's just like, there's a level of detachment. I'm not shit if I get it wrong, but it's just about checking back in, just to pulling ourselves back in line, back in check, just to making sure that we're getting those numbers right. So yeah, that's that one. So that is definitely a habit that people who, have been successful long term is just a healthy level of self-monitoring, not obsessive, not in a triggering way. And right now, if it's not supportive of you, then I don't recommend doing it. I recommend working on your mindset, doing the deeper work there, so that you can get to this place where you can fully be detached and you can just look at it as numbers and data, where you can just, utilize it to your power, not get obsessive over it, and then make some really good decisions based off that. Then lastly, the last habit that I want to speak to today is making people who have been successful and keeping off, they have a clear plan of what to do if you start to see changes. Essentially, if you've lost fat, then you have been maintaining for a while, but then you see yourself, the weight's going up, you're going up in the scale, then the people who are successful long term know what to do in that situation. They have a plan. If X happens, I'm going to do Y. If the weight starts to increase, I know my portions have changed a little bit. Maybe I'm not being mindful. Maybe I'm not focusing on, portion control. Maybe I've just just stopped thinking about it. Maybe I've been drinking too much, whatever it is. Right? People who are successful long term, they know how to pull themselves back in. And it's not about, being all or nothing. It's just being intentional. It's just making smarter choices, right? And I see it time and time again. It's so like people fall into the trap of, they lose weight, they do it in a certain way, then they start to regain it. Then they try in a different way to how they originally lost it. But it's like, why? Why do we do that? Because again, I really think it comes down to just like shiny object syndrome. It's just easier just to, start a new thing. It's easier to do 75 hard or insert your thing instead of just tightening and cleaning it up a little bit. That's what I just say to myself. It's like, oh, Laura, just go rein it in a little bit. And what does that actually mean is like, okay, a little bit less chocolate in the evening, or a little bit less carbohydrate with my meals and more veggies. Literally, like, just switching around your portion sizes, because that literally can make or break the results that you see in your body. So you guys, I feel like I've been talking for years. Let me know. That is the 8 habits that you guys need to start looking at and implementing today if you want to be successful long term. Let me know how this lands. Send me a DM on Instagram. I love hearing from you guys. That is a wrap. That is all. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you so much, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.